watching him play yesterday was his choice of not Dynamaxing very early on, going with more defensive duos. So we're going to go into team preview, and Yuya looking like he's running, you know, a lot of similar Pokemon to a lot of the other Japanese players in this tournament.
We've seen a lot of this over the course of the day yesterday, but one of the biggest differences here, and of course these players having already played each other know exactly what their game plan is going to be, but Yuya bringing that Sylveon. Sylveon, a Pokemon we haven't seen a lot of players liking it, but finding it sort of duplicative with Togekiss, but Yuya likes both of them.
Yeah, so I'm really curious what Pokemon are going to choose to Dynamax throughout the course of this matchup. I feel like Excadrill is a really solid choice for Yuya, as well as Tyranitar. And that's exactly the lead that we see come out here.
Classic sand leads here. Tyranitar and Excadrill against the Togekiss and Arcanine. Big value from Intimidate from that Arcanine onto Tyranitar and Excadrill. Typically is something you like to see as an Arcanine player.
Yeah, this, you know, is a good position for either Pokemon to Dynamax. Of course, Excadrill could choose to Dynamax and just start going for some big attacks. That Intimidate, however, will really pay dividends as it significantly reduces the damage output. And anytime you reduce the damage output of a Dynamax Pokemon, that's a really, really big deal. But still, right now, I think Yuya has the full offensive potential, and Gabriel, you know, might want to consider a switch. Question is, who do you want to Dynamax in this matchup? And I think Conkeldurr is probably waiting in the back specifically to deal with this duo, but I expect Togekiss to be able to come out. That's exactly what is to protect the Tyranitar here.
Yeah, Togekiss alongside the Tyranitar offering a lot of protection against that Conkeldurr, exactly as you predicted. Gabriel bringing out Tyranitar's natural enemy onto the field immediately. Well, it looks like we are just going to go ahead and see an immediate turn 1 Dynamax here onto the Arcanine. Bark, bark. Arcanine's getting big, trying to prove that its bite is just as bad as its bark.
Not a Pokemon I expected to Dynamax in this matchup, so I'm going to be curious to see what attacks it has. You know, Arcanine sometimes carry a fighting type attack like close combat specifically, and that would be super helpful against this Tyranitar right now. But if it is, you know, one of those more support-oriented Arcanines, which we saw Gabriel run yesterday, then the only attack it'll really be able to use is that Max Flare.
Yeah, and it looks like Yuya will respond by Dynamaxing Tyranitar as well. Max Flare, the attack coming out from Arcanine, trying to just get the KO onto the Excadrill and remove the sand, probably. Set the sun, try to make Excadrill a little bit easier to deal with, as well as that Tyranitar, but not a lot of damage to the Togekiss. And because Tyranitar was able to Dynamax, just going to fire back a Max Rocks Ball, deal good damage to Arcanine, and set the sand right back up.
Yeah, I think that's a really neat play from both players, and I think Gabriel probably hoping that the Excadrill is going to choose to Dynamax there, maybe target the Arcanine, and you know, you retaliate back with the Max Flare to bring it down to a potential Focus Sash or just KO it if it doesn't have that Focus Sash. But Yuya, maybe predicting that a little bit, realizes, okay, I don't really want to Dynamax Excadrill. It's intimidated right now, and it's more threatened by Arcanine, so let me switch that out. Togekiss is a great switch in because it also covers the Conkeldurr like Gabriel could switch into, which is exactly what he did. So now, you know, Tyranitar protected a little bit more. Of course, because Arcanine is faster, like a Max Flare here will still go into the Togekiss first, but we saw that it does less than 50%, so yeah, like Arcanine just needs to be safe for in the Intimidate here. That's why it's typically not a Pokemon that's Dynamax very often if it's a defensive set.
Especially when you have a Pokemon like Duraludon in the back here. Arcanine foregoing all of the benefits of the Dynamax, just switching for Duraludon, which takes so much damage from the Dazzling Gleam, and the Max Quake coming out from Tyranitar deals a lot right back to the Conkeldurr.
Yeah, so Max Quake, an attack on Tyranitar. We don't see that very, very often. And, the Drain Punch just goes right into the Tyranitar, so the lack of Follow Me there means Gabriel actually gets a ton of damage off and
a ton of healing.
Yeah, exactly. And
all
because,
the way back up.
The Duraludon is out now, too. You can, you know, ignore the potential Follow Me from Togekiss, so despite doing some decent damage there with Dazzling Gleam, perhaps it would have been a little bit safer for Yuya to just go for a Follow Me.
Oh, Aaron, that looks so close on the Duraludon.
Yes.
The Dazzling Gleam.
Now, the main thing is, of course, there is that special defense boost from Max Quake, so, you know, depending on how this Duraludon is trained, what item it has, I'm really curious if a Life Orb Flash Cannon from, like, Tip and Max Duraludon can get the KO onto Tyranitar. If so, I mean, maybe you can just pick up a double knockout this turn. The lack of a Follow Me there was huge, and nice play by Gabriel to maybe predict the lack of Follow Me instead of going for something like an Ice Punch, a Thunder Punch, or Rock Slide. Just goes for the Drain Punch, gets that read off, and heals back so much.
Yeah, recognizes that the power of Follow Me only exists if you use it, like Yuya is doing right now, protecting the Tyranitar from this Mach Punch. So Togekiss just taking a little bit of damage. Duraludon will get the Flash Cannon off, targets down the Togekiss, not trying to target down the Tyranitar instead, and activates the Babiri Berry.
Oh, and it survives too after that special defense boost
Special
from
defense boosts are so good.
Yeah.
And here's another one, another Max Quake from Yuya's Tyranitar onto that Conkeldurr.
Oh.
Still surviving, but dealing a lot of damage back, and more special defense boosts, making that Tyranitar feel even safer from that Duraludon.
Yeah, so Gabriel there maybe expecting, a Follow Me this time around, saying, I'm just going to try to get the KO there. You can see just how good getting special defense boost from Max Quake is, though, right? It allows the Togekiss to survive Life Orb Flash Cannon from Duraludon. Of course, there's the Babiri Berry as well.
Helps.
Yeah, but that's a huge survival, right? Because now, once again, you can't just go for something like Mach Punch. Togekiss very safely could go for something like a Follow Me. I mean, a Flash Cannon might knock out Tyranitar. I'm not sure, honestly. In Sand +2 special defense Tyranitar. Really curious about that damage calculation, but this is definitely a back-and-forth game so far. Of course, there is still that Excadrill in the back for Yuya, and I think you might want to consider swapping out Tyranitar or conserving it just so that you guarantee get the Sand up for the remainder of the game.
Yeah, well, looks like Gabriel's actually going to be the one retreating Pokemon, brings out his own Togekiss here to be alongside Duraludon, who is going to go ahead and just try to protect this turn, not trying to take any damage from Yuya's side. Togekiss also protecting, so 2 protects and 1 switch in. Earth Power. Earth Power. Earth Power.
Earth Power, yep.
No damage to the Togekiss. Special Tyranitar.
Yeah, so, Tyranitar, of course, gets access to Earthquake, so with Max Quake, you could be Earthquake or Earth Power, but actually revealing that it is Special Tyranitar, not something that we see very, very often here. So now for Gabriel, of course, he's got 2 pretty speedy Pokemon. You could just go for something like a Flash Cannon and a Dazzling Gleam. And, I mean, yeah, it's the last turn of Sand here as well. Excadrill is probably naturally faster than everything on Gabriel's end anyway, so, yeah, Yuya might be, doesn't feel forced to switch out the Tyranitar here.
Oh, Flash Cannon into the Protect. Yuya accurately protecting the Tyranitar there. This Dazzling Gleam also into the Protect, but will connect with Yuya's Togekiss, which has just been barely hanging on, taking all that Sand damage. Finally picks up that KO, so gives Yuya a free switch in here as the Sandstorm subsides.
Yeah, so we'll have to see who switches in here. I think, players might have been curious as to why Arcanine on Gabriel's end switched out earlier despite being Dynamaxed, and I think it was specifically to conserve the Intimidate for this Excadrill, which is such a big threat against so many of Gabriel's Pokemon. To be honest, that was a Pokemon I was expecting to Dynamax, but, Yuya making a nice play, counteracting the potential Dynamax Arcanine play. So, Excadrill here, if it is invested in speed, will naturally outspeed the Duraludon, and the Togekiss can potentially get a knockout onto either of them right now. Pretty risky, though. You don't want to go for a ground-type attack just for Togekiss to redirect it. If you have Earthquake, of course, you could go for that. I think Tyranitar kind of in an awkward spot right now where it's got the special defense boosts, but might want to consider switching out. We don't know what the last Pokemon is. That's going to be a big deal, as Duraludon's actually going to be the first one to switch out here.
Yeah, switching out for Arcanine just to get more Intimidates off. Make sure that Excadrill, if it's able to get off an attack, isn't going to be able to launch it at full power here. Of course, normally that would be great for the Tyranitar as well, but doesn't get it. Doesn't get the double protect either. And the Earthquake will connect with the Tyranitar and the Arcanine on the switch and knocks out his own Tyranitar, but also knocks out the Arcanine on the switch.
Yeah, so Earthquake key revealed there. One of the ways to get around Follow Me. But obviously the downside is you have to target your own side as well, and the lack of the double protect there means Tyranitar will go down. That single target critical hit Dazzling Gleam does a fair amount of damage to Excadrill. It's around 40%. So
you would hope a single target critical hit would do that.
The main thing here is that you do have Conkeldurr out now, which can just Mach Punch the Excadrill. And let's see what the last one here is on Yuya's, and it's Dragapult. Okay, so the dynamic of this is really interesting. First question I have is, can a Conkeldurr Mach Punch knock out the Excadrill? Second question I have is, what kind of Dragapult set is this? Is it, if it's like a, the typical physical sets we see, I'm not even sure it can really do anything to the Togekiss. If it's a special variant, like, maybe if you have Thunderbolt, you can do a fair amount of damage to the Togekiss. Like, you might want to consider doubling up onto it because Togekiss Dazzling Gleam will do so much damage, and perhaps a critical hit Dazzling Gleam will just get the knockout onto the Dragapult. So, you know, despite Yuya having the Dynamax advantage this game, I think Gabriel's actually put him into a pretty solid, you know, Gabriel's in a pretty solid spot right now. However, I think the main upside for Yuya right now is that he does have the speed advantage. Dragapult Excadrill should be faster than everything on Gabriel's. And here's the Mach Punch. Doesn't get the KO. Oh, it does.
Just a raw Mach Punch gets the KO onto Excadrill from that range. Shadow Ball shown from Dragapult, just trying to knock out that Conkeldurr finally. Conkeldurr goes down, but that means that Togekiss has a free single target Dazzling Gleam on this Dragapult, which is taking some Life Orb damage, and it does pick up the KO without the crit.
Yeah, so really impressive victory there by Gabriel. I think, you know, choosing to Dynamax Arcanine, which is definitely not the Pokemon you Dynamax most of the time with this team. I think like Togekiss and Duraludon are very good candidates to Dynamax, but that's really smart awareness. And even though Gabriel probably didn't get the most of what he wanted out of that Dynamax Arcanine, which was to snipe the Excadrill and bring it down to a potential Focus Sash and just get the knockout, it was just really clever to also conserve the Intimidate later on. I think a lot of players often feel really bad to switch out a Pokemon that's Dynamax, you know, after the first turn, but great awareness by Gabriel to realize I need to conserve this Intimidate because normal Excadrill can still do a lot of damage to me. And so, yeah, I think, you know, Yuya got a lot of value from Tyranitar earlier on, but once the Dynamax was over, he wasn't able to get another attack off with it. And Dragapult is an interesting pick here where it is quite strong, especially with the Life Orb, but when you're not Dynamaxing it, it's just so frail, and like a single target, as we saw, Dazzling Gleam will knock it out. You've got like Duraludon, which threatens you with Draco Meteor. Conkeldurr often has Ice Punch, which can hit it for super effective damage as well. We saw it was special variant as well. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like Yuya just didn't really get enough mileage off that Pokemon. Something like Sylveon in the end game there could have made things a lot more, a lot dicier, basically.
Yeah, a lot more difficult for Gabriel to get around a Sylveon than a Dragapult. You know, one of the hard things about that was Gabriel had set up a position where even if everything went well for Yuya, he would just had to be picking off individual KOs. And with the overwhelming Pokemon advantage there, Gabriel just had so many different outs to punish that from.
Yeah, the Intimidate is such a big deal here because without Intimidate, it looks like, you know, Excadrill can kind of just run through Gabriel's entire team with these big attacks. But the combination of Arcanine and Conkeldurr for Intimidate and, you know, fast Mach Punch just makes it so much harder for Tyranitar and Excadrill to thrive.
All right, well, here we go into Game 2. Yuya would like to take this one, force a Game 3, and keep his hopes high here for the top cut. Neither of these players will be mathematically eliminated after this. It just becomes much more difficult. And Gabriel has decided to lead with the Arcanine again, this time alongside the Duraludon, but the Intimidate now catching nobody, just a Togekiss and a Rotom Wash on the side for Yuya.
Yeah, so Yuya realizing I probably shouldn't be going with my physical Pokemon immediately, especially because Arcanine's likely to come out. So the thing here is that Rotom and Duraludon are still in a really good position, and the Sylveon does come out, but, you know, Arcanine, especially support-oriented versions, do often carry Snarl, so you can kind of just go for Snarl and attacks with Duraludon, but if Yuya maybe predicted this and a Max Whirlwind goes into Rotom, then that is effectively one turn of Dynamax wasted on Gabriel's end, so we'll see if Yuya went for that call.
Yeah, so this is a much more traditional Dynamax here, the Duraludon alongside the Arcanine, which shows helping hand. So even if this Duraludon gets off this Max Lightning, big damage, Dynamax, helping hand boost, one-hit KO onto the Togekiss. Sylveon gets in for free, but its friend, the Togekiss, it's gone.
That was a fantastic play there by Gabriel. I mean, I think it's easy to look at a Rotom and be like, oh, I have to worry a little bit about Nasty Plot potentially, and, you know, helping hand Max Whirlwind will just get the KO there, but doesn't get baited, gets a free knockout turn 1, and I think that's just an excellent play. Yuya does, however, get this free switch in into Dragapult, which will outspeed both Arcanine and Duraludon, and we've seen that it's a special Dragapult as well, so perhaps if you Dynamax the Dragapult, go for a Max Whirlwind, that might just be able to knock out the Duraludon. So one play like Gabriel can consider here is Max guarding the Duraludon and going for a Snarl, but looks like he's actually maybe switching into Togekiss, which also makes sense for Follow Me.
Yeah, switch in the Togekiss here for Gabriel to protect the Duraludon that has been Dynamax. Just going to go ahead and use the Max Guard. Gabriel getting now 2 turns of value out of Dynamax. But the Thunderbolt on the switch in, Yuya is not going down easily.
Wow.
Catches the Togekiss on the switch in, and now it's Yuya who's picking up the KO on the opponent's Togekiss with that combo of Thunderbolt and Hyper Voice.
Wow, that was a really aggressive read there, but it worked out perfectly. You know, I think on turn 1's end, Gabriel's play was a little bit safer because you're not threatened immediately by a knockout. Here, Yuya in front of a Duraludon, which can get the one-hit KO on either Dragapult or Sylveon, predicts a Togekiss switch in, and with that Electric Terrain set up and the Life Orb, Thunderbolt plus Hyper Voice does enough to knock out the Togekiss. So amazing read there, and now Yuya, you know, has the Dynamax advantage.
No Dynamax yet.
He has not Dynamaxed yet, and given that Duraludon Dynamax last turn, if you just Dynamax Dragapult now, given that it's special and Togekiss is gone, there's no free switching into Max Wormwind from special Dragapult. The Sylveon often carries, you know, something like a quick attack as well, so if you want to just guarantee the knockout onto Duraludon, you could just double, you know, tap that slot. And wow, I thought, well, you know, Gabriel was in such a good spot after turn 1, but a really aggressive read by Yuya brings him back into this game instantly.
Yeah, when you're down in that hole like Yuya was, sometimes you have to make those big plays to dig yourself out. And that was a big play. Also a big play, big Dragapult.
Showing who's the more potential dominant Dragon-type Pokemon.
Which is the best Dragon type in Sword and Shield, Dragapult or Duraludon?
Let's see if it's able to get this knockout.
The Max Wormwind is coming out from the Dragapult onto Duraludon.
Oh,
not
it survives!
Enough. 21 hit points left on the Dragapult. Well in range to pick up a KO with the Hyper Voice from Sylveon, though. But the Snarl from Arcanine comes out first, gets the special attack drops onto the Sylveon. Thanks to the clear body, Dragapult doesn't have to worry about that. And actually, Duraludon Steel Spike going before Sylveon, enough to pick up the KO.
Yeah, oh my goodness, this has been such a fast offensive-paced game, and
needed the double tap.
Yeah, you know, despite the Duraludon having such a low, you know, special defense, still able to hang on from the Max Wormwind there, and after the Life Orb, just has enough HP to survive. So, wow, I think, you know, KO there means that Sylveon can kind of just run through. Now, you know, the upside for Yuya is that Dynamax has ended on Gabriel's end, so you can very safely target the Duraludon slot freely. There's pretty much nothing Gabriel can really do because it will just get the KO even if Duraludon protects. So I think you probably have to sacrifice the Duraludon here. You don't want your 4th Pokemon to be damaged. And so, you know, the question for me is who is the last Pokemon on Gabriel's end? Presumably it is Conkeldurr, so I think Yuya's still actually in a decent spot where you can target the Duraludon slot safely and then go for a potential nasty plot if you are running that, which is, you know, been so common on all the Rotoms we've seen throughout the course of the tournament. Even if you don't have nasty plot, you can just go for a Hydro Pump into the Arcanine, and Gabriel actually makes the switch out here, so kind of not what I was expecting to see.
Yeah, switches out Duraludon for Conkeldurr, so full health Conkeldurr might be taking some big attacks from the Dragapult. But Max Geyser the show from Yuya onto the Conkeldurr. Just going to get a little bit of damage dealt back, set the rain here. You know, would have picked up the KO onto the Duraludon, but not close to picking up the KO onto Conkeldurr on the switch-in. Another Snarl is going to drop the special attack of Rotom before it gets to do anything. A Hydro Pump boosted by the rain from the Dragapult connects with Arcanine and is enough to pick up the KO even after that Snarl.
Yeah,
Yuya using those secondary effects so well here.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. You know, his team is relatively standard, but we've seen how, like, Max Quake can boost special defense on Tyranitar, and the Max Geyser, not a very common move on Dragapult, and used specifically in combination with this Rotom, and, you know, more importantly, he still has one more turn of Dynamax, so you can guarantee the knockout onto Duraludon into that slot. Really cool to see how he's able to combo with the rain there. Doesn't go for something like a nasty plot because he knows he has to deal with potential snarls. Instead, just goes for the knockout, and with the rain boost, able to pick up that knockout onto Arcanine despite the special attack drop. So one more turn of Dynamax, and man, I mean, Yuya just made such an aggressive but incredible read there predicting Togekiss earlier. And yeah, Max Wormwind definitely the best attack to go for here. You're going to knock out Duraludon,
get
even
the attack
through Protect
drop.
and the attack drop. Exactly. So amazing use of Dragapult in this game, honestly.
Yeah, really incredible use of the Dynamax factor here from Yuya. Getting all of the benefits of every single max attack. And this Hydro Pump again from Rotom, boosted by the rain. It has taken a Snarl, but still deals a lot of damage. Gabriel's going to try and heal back up with Drain Punch, but with that attack drop from the Max Wormwind, just not going to be able to keep up the healing as relates to the damage that's coming out from Yuya. And the aggressive way that Yuya has played this game too really threw this game on its head, and it's going to force a game 3.
Yeah, wow. For how turn 1 played out this game, I was just like, wow, it's a 4-3 advantage instantly, and you have a Dragapult and Sylveon staring down a Duraludon, and Duraludon can get the 1-hit KO on either of those.
Yeah, pick and choose, pick and choose.
Yeah, and instead, Yuya ends up just going for the KO on a Togekiss. Shadow Ball plus a Thunderbolt or Hydro Pump should pick up the knockout now, and wow, that was just really impressive play. I think, I love the turn 1 play that Gabriel made, and I love the turn 2 play that Yuya made. Just phenomenal gameplay from both players, and I'm so excited for this game 3 because I think you can clearly see why these players are in day 2 of this tournament, right? Like,
absolutely.
Phenomenal adjustments and plays both ends, and I love Yuya's decision to just drop Tyranitar and Excadrill outright. I think on paper it looks really solid against so many of Gabriel's Pokemon, but yeah, just the combination of Intimidate from Arcanine and Conkeldurr means that it's so much more difficult to bring. So, I think Gabriel has to go back to the drawing board and consider, okay, do I want to Dynamax Duraludon? It does so much damage, but, and it can survive that Max Wormwind from the Dragapult as well, but he has to, just be more concerned about Dragapult overall now.
Yeah. And you got to feel good about what you were, how you played if you're Gabriel. It's just that Yuya got those hard reads.
Yeah.
The position that Gabriel was in such a good spot that Yuya had to make these aggressive plays, and he had to make sure that he was getting those calls right. And then was able to switch over the momentum to him. Yeah,
and that's why one of the plays I was calling for Gabriel to potentially make is just go protect Max Guard the Duraludon and just, instead of switching on into Togekiss, just go for a Snarl, because I don't think a Max Wormwind should KO you. You'll heal back with your Berry. You get the Snarl off against both special attackers, which means you probably survive even if Sylveon has quick attack, like a quick attack and Max Wormwind into Duraludon. So a little bit riskier there, I think, to switch into Togekiss, and Yuya being so behind after that turn 1 play makes a really aggressive read to capitalize off it. So I think, Gabriel had the tools to win that with the Pokemon he brought, because Snarl obviously provides so much utility against Togekiss, against Sylveon, and against the special Dragapult as well. So he doesn't necessarily need to mix up the Pokemon changes. I think Jellicent is really tough to bring into this matchup because you're going up against Rotom Wash, Dragapult, and Tyranitar.
Yep. Any
of those can Dynamax and just get the 1-hit KO onto Jellicent, so that doesn't provide too much utility. And Meowstic could be interesting because you could use it to Thunder Wave a Duraludon, but you can't Thunder Wave Tyranitar, you can't Thunder Wave Excadrill, and if Togekiss is out there for support, then he can just redirect the Thunder Wave away. So I think it's like a little bit tougher to bring Meowstic because if you don't get that one Thunder Wave off against the right Pokemon, it'll just faint and effectively make it a 4v3. And I feel like Togekiss, Duraludon, Arcanine, Conkeldurr are such vital Pokemon in this matchup for Gabriel.
Yeah, and not just limited Thunder Wave targets for the Meowstic, but because Yuya has showed that basically every single one of his Pokemon is capable of Dynamaxing, Fake Out is never safe. Unless you have already seen Yuya Dynamax. And he has shown a patience with Dynamaxing in that game too, to make it so that you will never feel comfortable fake outing with Meowstic. Yeah,
I think one approach Gabriel could go for, which I think would be really difficult, but I could maybe see is if you go with the Trick Room route with Jellicent and Conkeldurr, and in order to guarantee Trick Room, perhaps you lead Togekiss to get that redirection support. But then the question is, how confident are you playing Trick Room against Yuya's team? Because as you see, Hyper Voice actually does a lot of damage against everything, and if you set up Trick Room, then Sylveon can just, get more Hyper Voices off. So I'm not sure that's the best approach, but it's something to maybe consider at least. And I think Yuya got a lot of important information from there, where he saw the value of how good Dynamax Dragapult can be. I think Tyranitar here is still, as we saw, a viable option to Dynamax because of the fact that it is that special Tyranitar, so not affected by that Intimidate. But still, we saw that Max Rockfall against Arcanine did around, 50-60%. So it's not like getting a 1-hit KO despite being special.
It wasn't huge damage.
Exactly. It's still special Tyranitar at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think... I think for Yuya's end, you have to go back to the drawing board because it's you were able to win that game, but you won it off a really aggressive read. And if Gabriel were to go with the same Pokemon, he could very easily not make that read and just go for a Snarl instead, like we were talking about. So, I mean, does he feel super comfortable bringing what he brought in the last game? I think he wants to probably get more value out of that Togekiss. Now that there's the Max Lightning, there's the Helping Hand, and you have to go, be a little bit worried about Helping Hand Max Lightning. So I think being able to have a maybe more optimal lead against what Gabriel brought into Duraludon and Arcanine would be a little bit more ideal. And I think maybe that starts off with something like Dragapult.
All right, well, Arcanine and Duraludon, the leads for Gabriel in this all-important Game 3. Both players tied at 1-1. Yuya has decided to pin his hopes on Togekiss and the Rotom Wash again. That Intimidate, again, hitting two Pokemon that don't really care about getting intimidated, and this is a mirror of Game 2.
Yeah, so Yuya not really mixing it up, and I think, once again, the lead favors Gabriel by a significant margin here. And you go for a bunch of plays, obviously just try to get a big KO with Helping Hand and a Dynamax attack from Duraludon, but you could also just click the Snarl button. The question is, maybe Rotom this time around wants to consider staying in, maybe wants to go for something like a Nasty Plot, or even just chip away at Duraludon. If you get a Thunderbolt or Hydro Pump off against that slot, then if the Togekiss goes down, you get a free switch in into your Dragapult and you can Dynamax it. As we saw, Duraludon needs a little bit of chip damage before that Max Whirlwind will get the KO. So I think, yeah, maybe this time around Yuya isn't just going to switch out and maybe get some guaranteed damage off so that Duraludon or Dragapult can come in, because if like, Yuya was able to win that last game because he had the Dynamax advantage basically after the first couple of turns. So, I think once again, you might be willing to sacrifice one Pokemon to guarantee the knockout onto the Duraludon, because the rest of what Gabriel's bringing, like, you know, Arcanine isn't, like, the most offensive Pokemon. Conkeldur's really slow, and then Togekiss, you know, does some damage, but not the best. And we're actually going to see a Dynamax here from Yuya's end. Yeah,
a dueling Dynamax is coming out from Gabriel and Yuya. Gabriel going to re-Dynamax the Duraludon, and Yuya is bringing the big washing machine, Rotom Wash, now Dynamaxed on the field to offer some immediate offensive pressure against at least that Arcanine. Arcanine, though, sees two special attackers on the field, knows exactly what to do. Arcanine's a good boy, just going to snarl both of them down, lowering their special attacks, while Duraludon gets off a free Max Lightning onto Yuya's Togekiss. Not enough to pick up the KO without that Helping Hand, but very, very close. Hanging on with just a few hit points there as the Max Lightning sets the electric terrain, and a Max Darkness coming out from the Rotom onto Duraludon, getting that chip damage to make sure that Yuya will be able to knock that out a little bit easier later, especially with these special defense drops.
Yeah, so Togekiss being able to survive is a big deal, gets the Dazzling Gleam off, and, you know, Duraludon takes a fair amount of damage there. So Rotom being the Pokemon to Dynamax this game, and I love the flexibility of both of these players. You know, we've seen Yuya Dynamax 3 different Pokemon throughout the course of this matchup, and Gabriel, of course, Dynamaxing 2 different Pokemon. So, yeah, you know, Togekiss surviving there is actually a little awkward. I think if it goes down, you get the free switch in into the Dragapult. You can just click the Life Orb Draco Meteor into Duraludon. And after that special defense drop, most certainly should KO. So maybe actually not what Yuya wanted here, but you know, he's not in a terrible spot. The main thing is that even like I'm not sure a Helping Hand Max Whirlwind from Life Orb Duraludon will knock out Dynamax Rotom. So maybe you're content to just sacrifice one Pokemon here.
Flare Blitz from the Arcanine, making sure that it picks up the KO onto Togekiss in case of any Follow Me shenanigans here, so that Duraludon's going to get an attack off onto the Rotom. It's the Max Whirlwind that's going to deal big damage to Rotom, bring it down to about 50% hit points, and dropping the attack. But now Rotom gets another opportunity to fire back with a Max Geyser, recognizing that the special defense drop is all that Rotom needed on the Duraludon to pick it up later once this Togekiss goes down, and picks up the KO onto Arcanine instead.
I love the decision from Yuya's end to just Dynamax Rotom Wash turn 1, because if you look at Gabriel's team, Rotom Wash hits so many Pokemon for super effective, right? You hit the Arcanine, the Togekiss, and the Jellicent if it comes out for super effective damage. You also have Max Darkness for those special defense drops. And, you know, Dragapult doesn't necessarily need to Dynamax because it does so much damage, and, you know, the electric terrain being set up means that you can actually take advantage of it with Dragapult. It's actually going to be Sylveon coming in here, though.
All right, Sylveon brought out from Yuya's side instead of the Dragapult. Still one more turn of Dynamax for Gabriel and for Yuya. Togekiss being out here would complicate things for the Dragapult with the potential Follow Me available, protecting the Duraludon. So going to need to take care of that Pokemon before Yuya is going to be able to knock out that Duraludon.
Yeah, the big question I have here is, can a Max Whirlwind get the knockout onto Rotom? You know, we saw a little bit of Snarl chip damage, so might be a damage roll.
Yeah,
I'm not sure it's like a guaranteed KO. Yeah, and if it survives, that's a big deal. So the question here also is, do you target down the Rotom, or do you just go for a Max Steel Spike into Sylveon?
Yeah, well, Sylveon's going to protect this time, so not going to get knocked out immediately like last time. If the Steel Spike comes through, which it does, Sylveon's not going to be able to protect itself fully from the damage, but it's better to take a little bit of damage than be knocked out immediately like what happened in Game 2. But that follow me from Togekiss means that Rotom Wash is going to get a chance to fire off this Max Lightning. Has been snarled, so not super powerful, and just enough damage to miss out on that KO as Togekiss survives with 24 hit points.
Yeah, so I like the play from both ends there. I think it's pretty safe from Gabriel's end. You know that Sylveon's a major threat with Hyper Voice, especially if Conkeldurr is your last Pokemon. So, you know, follow me there covers any attack like Rotom wants to go for. If Sylveon doesn't protect, you just get the knockout. Even with the protect, you still do a bunch of damage, and maybe like Flash Cannon will still be able to pick up the KO. So right now for Gabriel's end, he does have the speed advantage with this Duraludon. And yeah, I think Yuya recognizing maybe how good Sylveon could be in the late game, especially to deal with that Conkeldurr, is actually going to opt to switch out here.
Switches out for Dragapult while Togekiss protects on Gabriel's side. Just trying to make sure that that Togekiss can stick around and be as obnoxious as possible for as long as possible. Oh, so much damage on the switch in there from the Duraludon, and the protect coming up huge with protecting the Togekiss from that Thunderbolt.
Yeah, we've seen that Protect Togekiss really pick up in usage going into this tournament. You can see the utility there. Players often target it very safely, assuming that you'll just get a knockout. So, big Protect there. I mean, now Yuya can at least safely target into that slot. Mach Punch obviously won't be able to affect the Dragapult. You could also choose to just Shadow Ball the Duraludon and Thunderbolt Togekiss. So, Yuya pulling out that switch, and I think that's a good switch to make because of the fact that Conkeldurr is often going to be the fourth Pokemon on Gabriel's end, and Sylveon will just be able to beat that 1v1. So, right now, you know, you can go for a Follow Me to redirect an attack away from the Dragapult, and then Duraludon could maybe get the knockout onto Rotom, or could choose, I mean, if you choose to knock out the Dragapult, then Rotom's just going to knock out your Duraludon, you're just going to lose both Pokemon in one turn.
Well, Follow Me comes out from Gabriel's Togekiss, trying to make Togekiss get as much value as possible, but it is the Shadow Ball from Dragapult, picks up the KO onto Togekiss. So now Gabriel has a choice. Either knock out that Rotom or knock out the Dragapult. Goes for the Draco Meter, and it misses the Rotom. And that's exactly what you do not want to see. Dark Pulse picks up the KO, and it's going to be Gabriel's last Pokemon up against 3 of Yuya's.
Yeah, I mean, presumably that Conkeldurr. I'm not sure the Draco Mist really made too much of a difference here, to be honest, because if the last one was Conkeldurr, which it is, I think Sylveon and Dragapult were just going to clean up anyway. So, I mean, Yuya really won this off an incredible adjustment by choosing to go with the same leads, but just getting so much more utility off Rotom this time by choosing to Dynamax it. I really love the decision to Dynamax. I think, especially after seeing the success of Dynamax Dragapult, it's easy to, you know, kind of think of, like, that's the Pokemon I have to Dynamax, but kind of taking advantage of the lead matchup, recognizing like Gabriel wasn't targeting that Rotom slot in the last game, works out perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. It can be the same lead, but with a team like Yuya's, with so many different Dynamax options, that same lead combination can play an entirely different way.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we saw here in Game 3. And that's why Yuya is going to take this set and go to 8-2 record and continue on a path to the top cut.
I think Yuya recognized after that first turn in Game 1 is like, okay, he does have a way to get a big one-hit KO on something. So I don't mind if he gets that one-hit KO, because if he's choosing to Dynamax Duraludon, all I need is a little bit of chip damage, either with Rotom in Dynamax form or not, and then the Dragapult with Life Orb, especially after that special defense drop, we'll just be able to get that knockout. So really cool use of that Max Darkness special defense drop as well. Didn't end up being super relevant here, but it covers all the bases, basically. And the special Dragapult with that Life Orb ending up getting the KO onto Conkeldurr, and that was a phenomenal set.
Yeah, Conkeldurr really tried to go out fighting there, picked up the KO onto Rotom, and got Dragapult down to where it would knock itself out with Life Orb, but Sylveon still in the back. Yuya, really strong 3-game set there. Like you mentioned, took in the information from Game 1, understood that Gabriel had these opportunities to pick up the KOs, made those adjustments, realized the Sand mode, Tyranitar and Excadrill just wasn't going to cut it for this matchup, despite how good it looks on paper because of that Arcanine. The Rotom and Togekiss combination, that lead proved to be decisive for Yuya in this set.
Yeah, and I have to go back and think, I think Gabriel played this well as well at the end of the day. I think, I'm sure Rotom caught him off guard, Dynamaxing it.
Yeah. He
could have made some reads towards the end of that game to win, but, you can't fault him for not making those reads, because one of those reads is going for Draco Meteor into a Sylveon that you think is switching into Dragapult, which is so hard to make, right? And, you know, he maybe could have considered knocking out the Rotom with like a Draco Meteor, but you know, the really tricky thing in the position that he was in there was that like Dragapult just outspeeds everything you have in the back, but you also need to knock out Sylveon because Conkeldurr is your last Pokemon. So I think like because Yuya made some nice adaptations, he had like kind of like an early advantage like Gabriel probably wasn't expecting, and then that just made it so much harder for Gabriel because the best plays in the positions he was in weren't consistent save plays. It's like really aggressive read-based plays, and that's just, you know, a little bit more difficult.
It's hard to play,
exactly,
especially you know, after having played 9 rounds the day before. You know, those are the types of games that exhaust you the most, when you have to be identifying what not just your win conditions are, but your opponent's win conditions. And then what are the best plays for them to get into position for those win conditions? And Yuya showing that he was able to do that, especially in that game 2 with the hard reads, picking up the Togekiss on the switch in, which really swung that momentum. Almost had a 2-0 for Gabriel. But Yuya, really strong play there, bringing it back, making those adaptations to win in 3.
Yeah, another play I'm thinking about is maybe a second Max Worm win would have just knocked out Rotom when it was just under 50%.
It looks so close.
It was close. I mean, it had taken a little bit of snarl damage, so it's like tough to say there because I feel like we have no idea what the exact, you know, damage roll that is, but I can
almost
see
certainly going to end with like 2 hit points.
Exactly, yeah. It was one of those where it's like if you had like 10 more damage, you'd be like, all right, I get the knockout. But because it was just around that cutoff, like really, really tough. And I think like Gabriel ended up going for the safe play, which was that Max Steel Spike. But both times, you know, isn't able to get the knockout onto the Sylveon. Good conservation by Yuya's end, and that was just a really amazing set. I think like. I'm really glad we got to feature that for our first game because it felt like both players made so many adjustments throughout the course of the set. I love the Dynamax Arcanine in that first game. The
Dynamax Arcanine was so cool, and it won.
Yeah, and even though that in itself wasn't what won the game for Gabriel, I think it shows, you know, how good of a player he is, where he realizes despite me using support Arcanine, and we saw Snarl, we saw Helping Hand, right?
That was not an offensive Arcanine.
Not in the slightest, but it was still a cool decision, and you could see his game plan around the Sand mode with the Arcanine and the Conkeldurr. So Yuya then realizes, okay, I can't keep going with Sand because it's just not doing enough, and like Tyranitar are just so weak to Arcanine and Conkeldurr, so drops that completely in game 2. Starts off, you know, in a really, really tough position, but makes a super aggressive read and is able to come back into it. I'm really curious how that second game would have played out if, you know, Gabriel just stayed in with the Arcanine, went for that Snarl instead, because then you've chosen to Dynamax the Dragapult, which will still feint to a Duraludon. So I think Yuya realizing that after the second game, saying, okay, I can't just Dynamax Dragapult because it's so weak to Duraludon. If I'm Dynamaxing it, then I have to be in a position where I can just get the knockout onto it. And also, Rotom is just, you know, bulkier, has more utility, and honestly does more damage to everything. We saw how much damage he did that to Togekiss with Max Lightning around like 80% or so.
Just had a much better type matchup against the entirety of Gabriel's team.
Yeah, and I think, you know, at that point, Yuya was probably fairly confident what Gabriel was bringing in terms of Pokemon choice, and you saw the Togekiss, you saw the Conkeldurr, you saw the Arcanine. Obviously, Rotom has a phenomenal matchup against the Togekiss and the Arcanine, and against Conkeldurr, you can still do a fair amount of damage, especially if the rain is set up through Max Geyser. And then finally, the last one is Duraludon, which is so weak, especially defensively, and so Yuya really targeting Duraludon's low special defense, saying, okay, I'm going to make sure that you don't get too much mileage off it this time around. And phenomenal adjustments around by both players, and I think that third game really came down to whether Gabriel could make some aggressive predictions towards the end there. But once again, those are really hard reads to make.
Yeah, absolutely. An incredibly exciting way